Welcome on in to another episode of D-Backs Dispatch here with your pretty disappointed and pissed off hosts here, Brett, Gabe, and Brandon. We are here, unfortunately, to not talk about D-Backs postseason baseball and where they would be in their matchups because the Diamondbacks did not make the postseason. And oh boy, we will get more into that. Don't you worry. But if this is your first time in here, again, welcome on into D-Backs Dispatch. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, and hit the notification bell so you are aware of whenever we're going live for these shows. So you guys can pop in the YouTube chat, say what's up, or even sometimes if you get the notification and you're busy, you know about it, hop in later, rewatch it. Also, check us out on Twitter. Got banger memes. We're gonna keep the memes going through the off season as well. Never gonna die. Discord as well. Check out the Discord. And then also any articles on AZ Snakebit. I know it's, again, the offseason, but the offseason does not mean that the content doesn't stop. And there's also some really good stuff there throughout the offseason. So keep your eyes peeled. And then we will also get to some viewer questions. So if you guys have any of those, try to leave them in the chat and we will get to them. But kind of getting back onto the D-backs themselves, as I said, they did not make the playoffs. They did not make the postseasons. They did not qualify for it. And they barely missed it by one game. One of the main reasons why they did not qualify is because this last series against the Padres, their final three games, game 159 or game 159, 160. 160, 161, 162. I'm bad at math. I'm sorry, I'm terrible. The Padres already clinched. D-backs were hoping that maybe they could take care of business, win 2 of 3 at least. If they swept, they probably would have locked up that first wild card spot, and things would have okie dory, and we would have been very happy. But instead, the D-backs lost game 1, 5-3. They could not overcome a really rough first inning from Merrill Kelly, where he surrendered 4 runs. Settled down after that, but clearly was just too much for the offense. The best offense in baseball to do anything. The quote-unquote best offense in baseball continued to not be the best offense in baseball on Saturday when they were shut down by a not even a good, not to disrespect him, he's better than I would ever be, but again, not a what you would expect a 5-0 shutout to be. A AAA guy, a quadruple A guy that they should have hit, and they just did not. They got 2 hits the entire evening. They just looked like they genuinely did not come to play, which was a little bit disappointing because the Padres already clinched and got that first wild card seed with that game 1 win on Friday. The D-backs just did not even decide to show up and make it a game against the Padres. I'm going to say C lineup because I don't even think that would be a B. They kept out everybody, it seemed like.
I called it their double A lineup.
Yeah, like when Nick Ahmed is your 5-hole hitter in there in the year of our Lord 2024, I don't know if I could even put that as a B lineup. But like I said, they get shut out 5-0. And then Sunday when they needed to win, they had to win no matter what. They had big game Brandon on the mound. He showed up big, as his name entails, and they got the win over the Padres. I believe it was 11-2, and it was looking good. Things were looking like, at least the D-backs had a chance, but unfortunately, as we'll kind of touch on after this, wasn't the best of chances. But I want to pass it on to you, Gabe. With this series, the unfortunate end to our 2024 season, and games at Chase Field. What stood out to you in the series, whether the big disappointment, because I know there's a few. Actually, maybe that's a question to you. What is the bigger disappointment in the series between at least game 1 and game 2? And what are some of the other things that, kind of stood out to you? Same question to you, Brandon, but I'm going to start with you, Gabe. The floor is yours.
I mean, it's just the fact that they looked like the way they looked earlier in this season. They had literally no fight in them. They, if you average out the runs, it's something that I've been talking about for months. I feel like I'm being gaslit by people when they say it's not a big deal. Like, if you look at how many runs did they score altogether, it's like 12 or 13, right? Altogether throughout the series.
It would have been 11, 14 through the 3 games.
14. Average that out. That's almost five runs a game. But this was not 5 runs a game. This was the typical first half D-backs where they get their ass kicked for 2 games, can't even hit the ball, and then they show up for 1 game. That's what this series was, and that's honestly what I was expecting out of them in the playoffs if they had reached it, just because of how bad they had been playing for so long. And they continued the trend of not being able to score without home runs. They were all swinging for the fences. I was there on Saturday, and you can feel like just the air leave the stadium so quickly after like the second or third inning when it was just ground balls and little pop ups. And yeah, like right away, you can tell D-backs fans were like, yeah, like this is it. Like, how do you not see what's going on here and say, oh, they're going to make it. We got to keep up hope. Like, I know people were like, "Oh, well, we gotta hope and this. You're not a real fan if you're not hoping to the last minute." But it's like, well, I'm also not delusional. Like, I can see the writing on the wall, and the writing on the wall is telling me, "Hey, this might not happen, and it probably won't happen because we're relying on two teams who, if one wins, they might end up just, you know, not trying in the second game." And that's something I mentioned on Sunday in our group chat where I was like, and the Mets aren't going to be playing, the second game like at all. So I don't know why people were getting hyped up about that series. Like either whoever won, they weren't going to be trying. And I made that tweet, and people got upset about that. But I'm like, I don't know what you guys want to do. Like I understand the the copium aspect about it, and trying to keep hope. But man, like it's hard to see this situation happen and having to rely on other teams again. This team was downright pathetic for the last month and almost month and a half, just with how bad they looked, and it just all went wrong at the same time. And like AZ Bubba said, like I read that they didn't take BP on Saturday, and apparently they didn't even field ground balls those last 2 days, or 3 days even.
So on the broadcast, they said it's up to the assistant coaches if they want to do it. So Torley leads it up to his assistants to do it. So they obviously, I guess, again, I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, that is a awful look on McKay, Paris Chica. Like, that is and
apparently they didn't field this whole weekend either, and it showed on Friday just with the error after error. Then, I mean, I was pissed off that they weren't putting Alec in. I mean, we saw, like, throughout the season, like, how desperately this team needed Alec in center field, but obviously he was hurt and then sent down. And I know, his bat isn't there, but I want him out there. Like, Jake crashing into walls and just, like, flopping all over the place. Corbin and, Pavin jogging to ball straight down, down in right between them. Like, Alec could have gotten those, or Corbin, if he was on the other side, could have reached it as well. And it was just bad all around, and it was just so upsetting. And I'm like, man, I'm just like Pete Rose. Like, I can't live in the world without the D-backs in the playoffs.
You're like Pete Rose, except for the 16 years thing. Google Pete Rose 16 years from.
No, don't Google it. Yeah,
Brandon. Gabe, honestly make some points with and even I think Brandon's about to point out with Tanner. Dude, I was depressed, and hearing that they did not.
That's why we didn't do the stream yesterday, y'all. Yeah.
Sunday. We were still pissed on Sunday because we knew that we would be sad.
I know that me and Gabe was like Sunday, like, what's the point? Because we would have to do it again depending on what happens on Monday. So we're just like, why do it? And then, what happened Monday, we're like, no, I'm way too depressed. Like, it literally would have just been an hour of us ranting coherently because I was depressed and angry yesterday. And it just made it worse today after watching the Mets play. Gabe brings up a really good point about Alec. What was the point of bringing him up for that final series if he played one inning? Like, Friday, that first inning, yes, Kelly struggled in the first. But Marte didn't look very good on defense there in the first. Like, you could really say that Marte's 2 fielding bluffs in the first was the difference in the game. Now, one of them they called a single on Machado, and Baseball Savant said it was only like 90 off the bat. I'm like, there's no way that was 90 off the bat. Like, that was it said 94.8. I think it was at least 10 miles per hour faster than that. And also, if Alec is playing in center field on Friday, there were 2 fly balls to deep right center, right in front of the pool. Either Alec gets those, or with Corbin and right, he gets there. That's the issue I have with Pavin. I understand he had been hitting very well the last couple of weeks. That's why he was in there. But his defense, I believe he had one play in the left in the last week. It was a line drive right at him, and it just goes off his glove. I get we love Pavin, but for me, these games were too important to lose. I'm not as mad at Friday as I am at Saturday. Friday, I was really impressed with Kelly that he settled in after the first. And I cannot stand D-back fans on Twitter. In the bottom of the first, they're like, oh, we should cut Kelly. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He's literally been our best pitcher over the last 3 or 4 seasons. That man, he had a very weird season. And I don't blame it's nothing he can do. Because the whole thing with his cramping, he said that he drinks so much water. So there was that issue. But Saturday was despicable. Randy Vasquez, who was starting for the San Diego Padres, had an ERA of 5.5 at the start of the game. He has been up and down from their AAA affiliate 6 times this year. He is not a good pitcher. How did we have to wait till the 6th inning to get a hit off of him? That, they should be ashamed. When I saw that, I'm like, it doesn't matter what we frickin' do on Sunday because it's out of our hands. Our resident Dodger fan, Shug, here in the chat. Shug, you better watch your mouth in the Discord because, it is rough. But I was so furious on Saturday. I'm like, literally, they had 2 actual MLB players in there. Everybody else were role players, AAA and AA players. What the Mets and Braves did in Game 2 of the doubleheader, San Diego tried to do to us on Saturday. We just, I don't know. Yes, if you look at total runs scored throughout the year and average, yeah, Diamondbacks looked like they're the top offense in baseball, but Gabe pointed it out. We had 14 runs in a 3-game series. So you're like, oh, that's 4 to 5 runs a game. That's good. But if you actually look, we had 3 and 11. We didn't score any in the second game. So it's a very misleading stat, just like the whole thing with the run differential. It is an absolute joke. And I was so pissed on Sunday too, because I'm like, of course, in the one game that really doesn't matter, you guys decide to score all your runs. You couldn't have done that the day before. Had they won Saturday, I'm pretty sure we'd be playing in the playoffs right now.
It's the Saturday game, especially I get, Friday, the Padres, they needed, if they won that game, they locked up the number 1 wild card spot. They were going, it makes sense why that first inning, they were locked in. They've seen Kelly a bunch. They were out there hitting. But dude, they're punting away. You can't have
they
this
punted
lineup
Saturday hard.
Yeah, genuinely, they were literally giving the Diamondbacks the game on a silver platter, and the Diamondbacks just kept going, I don't want that. Take that back to the kitchen. I'm good. I don't want that meal. And they're like, all right, dude, we'll eat it for you. Thank you very much. And Higashioka ate one of those sliders from Puck, and good Lord. But I want to give a quick shout out to some of the people in the comments. Shug, obviously, Dodger fan. Enjoy the playoffs. Okay, we're just gonna be over here being sad. Okay, just kidding. Love you, Shug. Tanner, shout out. I know you joined the Discord, so again, reminder to anybody else that's listening live. Discord, it's in the link or it's in the description, and it's free. Hopping on there. Bubba, make sure you watch out because I know the Chase Field security can be a little soft at times, so don't get into it too much with the Padres fans. Okay, we don't want them kicking all of us out. But always a pleasure to have you as well. And then say it should shout out to you as well, my man. Much love. But Brendan, I didn't mean to cut you off there. What were you gonna say?
No, it's Puck. I'm like, it's such a Diamondback thing where we have one player that is so good for so long, and the one game that we need him craps the bed. Like, I'm not so mad about the Kyle Higashioka home run. It was the one to Lockridge. The guy had like 15 career plate appearances in his career, and he hits a home run off a puck. Like, Higashioka does actually really well against lefties, and like he has a lot of he had like 15 home runs on the year, but he batted like 210, but his slugging was like 650. So that one I wasn't so mad about, but we shouldn't have been in that spot. We should have been up by so much at that point.
One of the things my brother pointed out, I think my brother reverse jinxed it because we went to the game as we were on the way. My brother was like, you know what? D-backs are going to score 12 runs in the first. They're going to knock them out. And my God, the complete opposite happened just throughout the entire game. And one of the things he noticed, it seemed like they were just getting fooled. Like they were, I don't know if he was more of an off-speed pitcher, if his like changeup and curveball, because I know he was throwing, I think he hit Cattell with the curveball. But they just looked like they could not touch his fastball, and they were only sitting on the off speed, and he just kept it in the dirt. It was like playing against somebody that's never touched MLB The Show in their life, and you're like, all right, dude, if you don't want to lay off the curveballs in the dirt, I'm just going to keep throwing you the curveballs in the dirt. Like, thank you very much. And it just seemed like that's kind of what they were doing. And yeah, like Gabe, you made a great point about it seemed like the stadium just had after like the second or third inning, the life, just the air, the energy, the vibes, it was gone. And it completely was like, it turned from it was definitely a nervous energy building in the ballpark, but it turned from just a nervous energy to just being nervous. Like, because you can't have nervous energy if there's nothing to be, energetic about and cheer about. And they literally gave us nothing. Like, at least the pitching was good. Like, I'm never going to be mad about a decent pitching duel, but there should not be a pitching duel with the guy who's been up and down with the Padres AAA team 6 times that has a 5 ERA. That should not happen. I should expect a pitching duel when it's Tariq Skubal and Zach Gallen, not what we got on Saturday night. That was a joke. And
I mean, even
I
their
generally
bullpen, once the guy pitched 6 innings, and it's not like the Padres were throwing out their best bullpen. They weren't throwing out I forget this. Like, there's like 3 guys. I always forget their names.
Scott, like
no,
Suarez,
I don't. Well, they didn't pitch in that game.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like their A, they didn't use.
Yeah, they use Hoeing, Peralta, and Matsui.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not saying they're no names, but they're a little bit of the like.
It's like their B
for them.
Yeah, it's like their B bullpen.
Yeah, this was like they would be coming in if the D-backs were winning like 7-0 or something like that, and they still were just blowing away the D-backs like nothing, and it's just such a pathetic showing. It was just like, does anybody but Corbin even want to be here right now? Like, that's kind of just how it felt. It didn't feel like anybody was even trying. They're swinging for the fences or were just like kind of jogging. Like, it was bad. Like, oh my God. It was just such a depressing game. And once they scored like the first run, I was like, that's over. Like, I kind of just left after that point. And I was sitting like so far on the other side of the stadium that, I still was able to hear like the 3 other home runs that went through. And I was like, damn it, man. Like, they didn't even get to the inning. Then they put in freaking Scott McGuff. And I'm like, we're down by like 3 runs. Like, it's not impossible. But then, yeah, of course, Scott McGuff, gives up like 2 more runs. And you're like, yeah, if it wasn't over before, it's definitely over now. I'm like, goddamn.
Yeah, so Mark brings up a point in the comments. He was there on Saturday, and the tension was really high. The tension really was. It, like I was in my seat. Like I'm already a nervous fan when I'm watching games. I'm leaned forward, face in hands like this the entire time, watching every pitch. And that was 9 innings, and it just fell apart. And that's what's unfortunate, is because it just seemed like there's been a few games that we've had throughout the season, and we'll kind of touch on that a little bit, in one of our later topics, because
there's so many games,
so many.
Like,
there's so many. We have plenty to.
I don't know if I want to go back and like just list all the change this.
It'll be, I think,
because it will just frustrate me even more.
If you don't worry, I got you. I'll do it. It'll be like a little surprise. I'll get with Josh. And we'll kind of make it a video. So it might frustrate you, but at least it'll be a frustrating surprise and not frustrating work going through and finding it all. But one of the biggest parts, about the frustration and why this, kind of sucks and hurts about them punting that game Saturday is because, Gabe kind of touched on a little bit.
I don't think they. Wait, are you talking about San
sorry,
Diego?
Sorry, yeah, about not capitalizing on the game
Okay.
that San Diego punted away.
Okay.
Was because, if they would have won that game, especially with the Mets losing Saturday evening to the Brewers, which we would be in the playoffs right now if not. But because they didn't, and then the Mets won on Sunday, the Braves lost, and the D-backs won, they were into a 3-way tie, which meant, obviously, a lot of you guys probably know if you're listening, but I still kind of want to break it down for anybody that didn't know. Because the Mets and Braves series last week on Tuesday and Wednesday, there's hurricane. Wednesday, Thursday. Thank you. When the hurricane was coming through the East Coast, they had to cancel the games, push them back, and they scheduled a doubleheader, obviously, for that Monday. Well, the unfortunate thing about the D-backs and all that being tied with the Braves and the Mets is they did not have the tiebreaker over either of them. So just off of, if the season ended there, they didn't need to play those games, the D-backs were out. Well, the only hope that we had of the D-backs making the playoffs, obviously, was a sweep by either the Mets or the Braves. They had to win both games. It did not matter who, and the D-backs are in. But, it's unfortunate because if the D-backs were in the same position as they were, I feel like we would be asking Torey Lovullo and begging the team to do the exact same thing. Whoever won game 1 was not going to try for game 2 because the very next day they'd have to travel to either Milwaukee or San Diego, and they would have to, worry about the rest of their postseason. Whereas it was kind of like one of those where a lot of people made jokes online about, a little handshake agreement, as if you guys watched the league, collusion. There was definitely, it seemed like there would be collusion, at least a little bit, and that kind of, maybe not the exact word to describe it, but Mets won a wild game 1. Both teams were trying, obviously, because both teams wanted to win that one and get it over with. Back and forth, Mets, clutch it up. Francisco Lindor, go-ahead home run in the 9th inning. So we all become Mets fans for game 2, and oh boy, they pretty much hit like the D-backs did on Saturday night. They just did not care, and I mean, again, who would blame them? We would not want the D-backs.
Some of those swings, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me, dude?
They literally were like going up there and being like, okay, I'm going to swing with the least amount of power because I don't want to hurt myself. And this is exactly what they did. The Braves, and it sucks too because the Braves they were handed that game and they barely won. They won 3-0. They were having a tough time, even hitting Joey Lucchesi, who made his first start of the season. And it's very unfortunate that the D-backs, it seems unfair. And like I, kind of agree with you guys a little bit on, it's not the best integrity, especially, I'm sorry, afterwards when divisional rivals and opponents are celebrating with each other, taking photos, like borderline popping champagne. What happened to the beautiful sport I love? Sorry, I had to be a boomer for a moment. But it sucks, but the D-backs kind of put themselves in that position. Like, we have nobody else to blame. We can be mad about the Mets. We can be mad about the Braves. They handled their business. Brandon said it in our group chat, our text chat. The Mets went on like an unworldly run. They went 20-9, I believe, in their last 29 games. Genuinely, the grimace magic was flowing through them. The Hawk Tua grimace, whatever the fuck bullshit they had going, was running with them. And, it's unfortunate. And that's, like Brandon said, it's painful. There's a lot of things we can go back and look at in the season. Games against the Braves, the 8-0 against the Brewers, even other ones early in the season. Every game matters. But at the end of the day, if you're 2-5 in your last 7 games,
2-4 against the Rockies and Giants.
Yeah, 2-4 against the Rockies is unacceptable. 2-5 in your last 7 games against, I know the Giants are playing spoiler, but you got to beat those teams. And the D-backs didn't. They laid down and died. And it was very unfortunate. So, I've gotten my little 2 cents and my rant and frustration out about it. I want to pass it on to you guys. Gabe, starting with you, with the doubleheader situation with the Mets and Braves, and then also the D-backs kind of, shooting themselves in the foot and being the ones that, had that situation even be a thing. Just rant about it. Let me hear, open the floodgates.
Yeah. So, I mean, the issue with people nowadays, like, especially online, like you apparently can't hold 2 opposing viewpoints at the same time. It's just you're either all this or all that, and which is stupid because like I know the D-backs shouldn't have been in this situation. It's all if and buts were candy and nuts. Like I know, I understand the situation, but also the fact that MLB scheduled these last two games the way they did. I'm like, if this was, for example, the A's and the White Sox, MLB would have been like, nah, we're good. Maybe just one game or something. But because they know they're going to get, more ratings with the A's, with the Braves and the Mets, they gave them all the chances they could to be able to take that. And man, just as soon as the Mets won, I'm like, there's no way they're gonna try it on the second game. I don't see why they would. And people were saying like, oh, well, they hate each other. They're rivals. Blah blah. I'm like, rivalries are dead in sports. Like, there's no such thing anymore, especially in baseball. The way they were, popping champagne with each other, taking pictures. I'm like, man, if that was the D-backs and the Dodgers, I would like, I would throw beer at them. Like, goddamn, like that's so embarrassing. Like, what happened to integrity? What happened to shame? What happened to the milkman, the paper boy, and evening TV? But it's just like, it's so frustrating to see that sort of thing. And I'm like, man, like y'all really got no shame. And, swinging at pitches in the third and then, Pete Alonso's fat ass, just like not even trying either, looking, as lifeless as he did in the home run derby. And I know the D-backs shouldn't have been in that situation. That they choked. There's no other way to put it. They choked. They stopped trying in the last month. In the last month of the season, the pitching didn't help. The offense went completely dead, and there's a lot to blame. There's a lot of blame to go around. You can blame Torrey for a lot of this. You can blame the bullpen for a lot of it. You can blame a lot of the offense as well. I mean, namely Corbin and Suarez. And I know they recovered in the second half, but they were bad for 90 games. That's bad. Like, that's more than half the season where both of these guys were under 200. And at that point, their record was something, they were like 7 games under 500. And I know they recovered eventually, but again, you can't start off that way and expect to make the playoffs. They almost did, but it wasn't good enough. And I said it like right around the beginning of the season. We were talking about expectations. This team is going to need 90 wins, and they were one short. And I know there's times where, especially early on, I know, Brandon, you wanted to be the rational fan, but I would mention every game counts, man. We can't give these up. And, especially with some of these blown games, like I can find a clip probably of saying, that one game can make the difference, especially at the end of the season.
Yeah, and I think even to Brandon's credit, he did even clarify too. He wasn't saying that they didn't matter. It's just like one of those. The season isn't over after an April game, and obviously, like double credit to you, Gabe. Like it can still, affect your game at the end of the season. And that's one of the beautiful things about baseball is the roller coaster of emotions of 162 games. We're so back, it's so over. We've never been more back. It's never been more over. And that was the 2024 Diamondbacks in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Bubba, I swear to God, I don't need it. Okay, I don't need that. And then even Bubba brings up a great point about if we were competitive in that Dodger series, we could be in the position that San Diego's in right now. Not even just
there's so many examples. Like there's probably at least 10 to 15 games you can point out that if one thing changes, we're playing right now. You are muted.
Sorry, thank you. Not even just going back to April, like we mentioned it about the Torrey. Some of the decisions he made with the bullpen and the management. He was managing for the postseason at times. It's like, well, look at that, Torrey. If you don't make it to the postseason, again, this is not me saying, hey, Torrey, you should be fired. I want to clarify that really quick. But it's just sometimes like you got to make it there first. You got to focus on that first. And that's just, he wasn't doing it. But Brandon, same thing to you. I want to let you kind of get out your thoughts, whether they're kind of the same with Gabe of what happened to the sport I love. Like that's the rivalries are dead, but you got to have a little bit of integrity, and then the kind of D-backs shooting themselves in the foot. So, floor is yours, my good sir. Speak from the heart.
This continues to prove that Rob Manfred is one of the worst commissioners in sports. The fact is, he let the Atlanta Braves organization make a decision on these games. Major League Baseball should have stepped in to make a decision because the whole They play all the games at the same time on Sunday to avoid this sort of thing. And they're like, well, actually, we're going to have 2 games after so that they can have, quote unquote, again, just being a better fan, there probably was no collusion, but the way the product completely changed. Like that game was high intensity, the last 3 innings, back and forth, back and forth. And then what like it was like 1 run through like 6 or 7 innings. I'm like, and like if you look at the lineup the Mets put out, it was a double AAA lineup. Like, because there literally was no reason for them to try. Like, it wouldn't benefit them in any way. I truly thought, and we've discussed it, like there's no such thing as rivalries in baseball for sure. Other sports, that like college sports, it is still there. Like I will say, college sports, it is still there. But this, like they should be ashamed of themselves for what the Mets did. Like, there was a meme going around of literally. The cuck meme, it was funny. It changed 3 times in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Like, it was...
Shout out Pardo for that. Hard Pard. MLB legend.
Like, it was funny. And I know a lot of people are going to look back and say, don't blow it 8-0 lead. I'm not as mad at that one because the Brewers are a good baseball team. They're in the playoffs for a reason. Losing 11-0 to the Giants at home is insane. And the fact is, Brandon Pfaadt, the start before looked dynamite, and the start after looked dynamite. What happened in that start? Like, that game was so frustrating. Like, you weren't even competitive in the last week of the season. There were so many games where, like Gabe said, like, they just didn't care. Like, when people were saying that in the final month, I'm like, no, they care. They want to make the playoffs. But, like, looking back at it, like, there were certain games where they just didn't want to try.
It felt like it's like in those certain games, to your point, there are times where it's almost like they, in their minds, are like, it's fine. We're going to make the playoffs. It's fine. It's like
they thought, they thought they could just turn it on and turn it off with certain games. And then they realized, oh, shoot, we have 3 games left and we need to win 2 of them.
I mean, that mentality, I mean, and I want to piss the Torrey stands, but that mentality comes from Torrey, the way he was managing games, talking about, well, we have to save this guy for the playoffs. We have to rest these guys for the playoffs. What playoffs? Why is it guaranteed? Why is it promised? Playoffs aren't promised to anybody. You have to play every game like it's the last. Like, look at the way Cleveland is. Stephen Vogt manages games like it's the last game of the season. And that's why they're in the playoffs, despite, having a $5 budget on that team. Like, that team has, if you look at it on paper, you're like, how did this team make the playoffs? I'm like, oh, it's because Vogt. I mean, I'm not going to say that Torres is a bad manager, but Vogt managed these games like they were the last ones. He wasn't worried about tomorrow. Every game he was thinking, I'll figure it out. And Torrey just, manages a lot of games like, well, we have to make rest guys for tomorrow. We have to do this for tomorrow or for the playoffs. Didn't matter. They can rest for an entire extra month in Cancun this year because of that mentality. And I know a lot of it comes down to the players too, not performing. But there's times where it's like, man, when you're putting Miguel Castro and, oh man, like I don't even know. Half these guys, they're not even on the team anymore. When you're having these guys come in and try to save games and you're still putting in Paul Sewald with his 91-mile-per-hour fastball that's getting hit for home runs left and right. And which, by the way, blew games against the Dodgers, the Padres, and then the Braves consecutively. Mm-hmm. So would have been nice if we had a guy, in the bullpen who could throw in 103 miles an hour, but I wouldn't know about that.
Send him to the Shadow Realm. Brandon, thoughts?
I mean, yeah, there probably is, but it's not going to make a difference. And I know everyone They want a scapegoat, and the easy one is Torrey. But I'm not saying he's not without fault. Torrey is to partially blame for this. You do not fire a manager that takes you to the World Series one year and the next year gets you 89 wins. This is the Suns and Monty Williams all over again. Oh, you're not happy with how the season ended? Yeah, let's fire him, but there's nothing else good out there. And what have the Suns looked like since they let Monty go? Just so inconsistent. Do we want that? I know I don't. Like, yes, there are sometimes Torrey makes decisions that I just can't fathom. But for the most part, he's the second best manager we've had in franchise history. Even though he has more wins than Bob Brenly, but Bob Brenly has the one that matters, and that's the World Series. So, yes, like he has the ring, and that's right now, that's the only reason Bob Brenly is above Torrey. Like, if Torrey had a World Series, it's not even close. Torrey is the best manager in franchise history. And I know everyone wants him gone. So many people wanted him gone like the first week of the year. Like the first little bad choice he made, they're like, no, fire. Like that's everyone's go-to. Fire Torrey.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like Torrey is a little bit partially to blame. But I mean, there are some times where still, hey, the players need to execute a little better. Starting pitchers need to be better, like execute better. Just sometimes the hitters, like I know hitting can be a hard thing in sports. Sometimes the pitchers, do their job and get the hitters out. But, maybe the best offense in the Major League Baseball should, score more than 0 runs against a quadruple A pitcher. But like we're saying, unfortunately, you can't do any pick'ems. You can't look for the D-backs on Underdog anymore. But what you can do on Underdog is take a swing at pick'em this baseball season, especially this postseason. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got into the game last year by making picks on Underdog. Me personally, I like to do the higher lower, especially for football on Sundays, and then now we're into postseason baseball. Higher lowers for outs, especially the starting pitchers. Those bullpens are going to be used very, very quickly, so I really like to go for the lowers on the pitcher outs. Pretty early games like we saw last year with the D-backs, Torrey Lovullo pulling Brandon Pfaadt early. But Underdog is super easy to use or super easy to play, and it's even easier to get started. Go to the easy-to-use mobile app or to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code DISPATCH, and Underdog will give you a mystery special pick to use on your first pick of entry, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code DISPATCH, to claim your new customer special of a mystery player pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 years or older, 19 and up in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 and older in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. AZ 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY 467-369. So again, make sure you go to Underdog, code dispatch, get those higher lowers on the pick'em entries, and maybe even throw some higher lower on touchdowns for this upcoming Sunday for Marvin Harrison Jr. or some of the other stud wide receivers, because those are some easy ones to make. But getting back into the D-backs and the flow of all that, we kind of got our final thoughts on the D-backs disappointing end of the series, and obviously the shit show that MLB kind of set up for all of us with that doubleheader situation on Monday. But we still wanted to kind of take a little bit of a step back. I know it's not a full step back. We're still a little bit emotional. It's still a little bit raw. We're still a little bit on that recency bias. Like, Brandon, you make a great point. But I did want to, kind of go through some of the season's successes and disappointments. Maybe start with the disappointments, to kind of get the bad out of the way, and then, get a little cherry on top of the, the poop nugget that was some of the disappointments in here with some praise. So Gabe, I want to start to you. obviously, what are some disappointments that you saw throughout the 2024 season, and then some of the things that you will at least cherish the memories and have going into future years.
I mean, I guess the disappointment is the entire season in general. Like, there's no way you can look at the season and truly say it was a success, anyways. Because just look at the facts. This team went to the World Series last year. They upgraded their payroll. They went up by over $75 million, I believe, in their payroll. They have a better roster. Their attendance was higher. They led the league in runs. They had a 93% chance to make the playoffs 10 days ago, and they collapsed. Not only that, it's just you can pinpoint so many guys as well who had down years, disappointing seasons. Like any season where you don't make the playoffs is pretty much a disappointment. But when you have expectations as high as these to at least get to the playoffs, I wasn't expecting World Series again. Like I know going back to back is incredibly difficult. Like that's why teams like the Dodgers, they don't make it every single year. It seems like they're there every year, but they're really not. They haven't made it since 2020. It's incredibly hard to do. Like there's so much randomness in baseball, especially in the playoffs. So it was just one of those really, really frustrating things to witness overall. But yeah, it's just I guess in terms of positives, certain guys had career years like Gino who turned up in the second half. The main thing I guess would be Ryan. Ryan showed to be a lot better than we all thought he would end up being, and fought. I mean, he collapsed there at the end, but he also got up to like 180 innings. Like maybe we can limit him a little bit or just get him stretched out. J Mart looked fantastic for most of the season. There is certain positive nuggets overall, but yeah, it's just this was bad. This is a complete disappointment and a failure of a season. And anybody who says otherwise is honestly kind of delusional, because I don't understand how you can see the product that was out on the field, especially for that last month, and say, "Oh, well, they're going to start off good next year." I'm like, are they? They might lose Jock. They might lose Walker. There's certain guys who are going to be gone from this team. Like, what are they going to do? Is Ken Kendrick going to open up the checkbook again? Because the comments that we're going to get to about Monty, it doesn't seem like he wants to. He spent more than he ever had before, and yet they missed the playoffs. And 89 wins isn't going to get you anything. And if you were to ask any fan at the end of last season when they lost in the World Series, hey, next year, would you rather take them winning 89 games or making the playoffs? Every fan would tell you they would rather take making the playoffs. Doesn't matter if they won 82 games. They would still want to at least make the playoffs. So you can't tell me that it was a success when this is a complete failure.
I think that's fair. I mean, especially like you said, going off of this team made the World Series. This team added a bunch of pieces. They spent money. They filled the holes that we were asking them to fill. And you did say about Ken's comments with Montgomery. We'll get to that. It was I do agree with you. There might be successful parts of the season with Ryan Nelson taking a step forward. Corbin and Gino really bouncing back from some pretty tough struggles early on. And then even Justin Martinez really proving that he has the elite stuff to be a back end of the bullpen arm. Like those are very positive things. I don't want it to seem like those don't need to be forgotten at all. Those need to be those are very important. They're good things. But like Gabe said, to me, missing out on the playoffs after making the World Series again, there's no ever guarantee to go back to the World Series. We've seen the Dodgers not do it. Even the Astros sometimes don't always do it, even though they've gone to 7 straight ALCSs. There are, I feel like the standards, as Tori always liked to said, and with the standards that they had, I don't think they met the standards. Like I know they improved on their win total, but to me, the win total isn't the standard. The standard is making the playoffs. It seemed like they established that going into it, that's what the standard was to be a playoff baseball team, and they're not a playoff baseball team. So kind of like Gabe said, I would agree. That's a unsuccessful season. It's not a fail. I wouldn't classify it as a full fail. I think that could be a little bit of a harsher tone with it, or a harsher term. And if you do, if any of you, Gabe, anybody else listening does classify it, that's fair. Like everybody has different emotions, reactions to, the end of a season. But I think it's one of those. It definitely would be classified as unsuccessful. But that's my personal opinion. Brandon, with the season, 162 games, there's a lot of things to go through. Especially, the human mind can only keep so many. But in your mind, off the top of your head, what are some of the disappointments that you saw throughout the season that kind of stuck out to you the most? And then what are some of the positives that you're going to try to keep in the mind as we're going into the offseason and into spring training next year?
The biggest disappointment of all was Jordan Montgomery, without a doubt. Like, it's not even a debate. Like, he was mostly down the entire year. Like, every start was not great. He definitely, it was frustrating to watch. Like, at the beginning of the year, when I saw our potential rotation, I got really excited. I got super excited. I'm like, dude, this team.
I was working for it, dog. We literally got a clip of me like shaking my ass for the Jordan Montgomery news. I was excited for it.
Like, I was like, we have 5 guys that could get 12 wins. And we had I thought 3 that could get 15 wins. I'm like, we're gonna threaten the Dodgers in terms of wins. Nope. Was like Jordan Montgomery never worked out. He may have had 3 good starts the entire year. Like, it seemed like almost every time he couldn't get through 5. Like, that was my biggest disappointment. Everything else was okay. Gino starting bad wasn't great. Corbin being bad for a good portion wasn't great. Now, by season's end, they both did better. I was more impressed with Gino. Congratulations there, going 30 and 100 after the first 2.5 months that you had started with. I didn't see that it was possible that you would finish there. And Corbin had the normal sophomore slump that a lot of good time players have. Gunnar Henderson didn't, but he's the exception, not the rule, because it happened to Julio Rodriguez as well last season. Not this season, but 23. He was bad for the first half as well. So, but I'm with you that it's a disappointment. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that it was a disappointment, but when you're a couple games away from a World Series championship, first of all, that should be the goal every year. Make the World Series and win the World Series. If your expectation is anything less, then it's like, what's the point? So yes, it's a disappointment, but I'm not saying that it's bad. Like, there were still a lot of things that I enjoyed watching. I was there for the home opener against the Rockies. That was very fun. I think my other disappointment is the starting pitching. The starting pitching, it felt like they never got going at all. And it was the reason why we didn't make the playoffs. In my opinion, it was the starting pitching. Like, offense had to score 6 runs a game because pitching was giving up 4. So there's a lot of decisions that's going to be made this offseason. So I'm very interested, and they're going to give us plenty of content. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting how they go into the offseason. Some of the things that you guys mentioned or were brought up in the comment section about some of the good. Josh mentioned, never forget the feeling of listening to the very first game of the year, going crazy. Never forget that one. Yeah, same. That opening day was wild. That was like what the offense showed us and what they were that offense for a lot of the year, thankfully. But then, of course, that looking back on it, man, the opening day, a lot of runs early and not a lot of runs the rest of the game. Oh boy, were we not prepared for what they were showing us. The Blaze fever in spring training. And then I agree with what Bubba said. I think a total fail would be the Rangers. The Rangers making the World Series and winning And again, we missed out on the playoffs by like genuinely one game. The Rangers were eliminated from the playoffs a month ago. They went back to being what they were the last few years, which is a little unfortunate to see. I like the Rangers, want to see them, turn around. But going from, kind of our comments, our thoughts on the season, all that up and down, we're just, three guys, that found each other, that are listening to it or wanted to start a podcast and all that. But we wanted to, listen to the man himself, Torey Lovullo, and then I believe we might even have some comments from the GM, Mike Hazen, just on their thoughts on the season and how it kind of came down to the end.
This hurts. This is a really difficult situation that we're all kind of navigating through. You can't really predict the way the season's going to end, and then you got to wait around an entire day to find out what your fate is. I've never experienced anything like that, and I don't think any of the guys did either. But we got in one place and one space. There was a lot of cheering. There was a lot of excitement for the entire second game, and then it became very somber once we learned of the news. I got in front of the team, and I mentioned yesterday, I thanked them for the effort that they gave me, the trust that they placed in my hands and the coaches, and we had a good year. We had a really good year, and I want to make sure that they understood that. And despite not making the playoffs, as frustrating as this last week was, we've got some growing and learning to do, but to remember that the sun will come up tomorrow, and we're going to fight through this. And we have a lot of ground to cover this offseason. We have a lot of baseball games to win in the future. Hopefully more playoff games are in the cards for us. Just wanted to remind them of all that stuff, I woke up this morning, I put on my lucky shirt, put on my lucky socks, my lucky shorts. I think everybody in the Valley did that. I think we had a room full of people that went and did the same thing today. Just didn't happen. And it stinks. It really stinks, and it really hurts. It cuts deep. Like I told you guys last year at this very podium after we lost Game 5 of the World Series, we've got to continue learning and growing. We can't sit still, and we're going to have to figure this out. We're going to figure out a way to continue playing until we win the last game, and we're pouring champagne on one another. That's our goal every single year.
Exactly what I said. World Series should be the goal every year. In any sport you play, winning the title needs to be your number one goal. If it's not, what's the point in playing?
Yeah, it's kind of like what Gabe was saying earlier when he was explaining it. You can say the season was good. You can say all that, but genuinely, especially after last year with the D-backs making the World Series, them not making it and being like, the season was still a very successful season. I'm going to label it a win. That's cope. That's straight up copium. I'm sorry. That might be rude. That might be, brash. I don't like that is coping. That is
it's people that coping. Don't want to be critical.
No, I did it originally because even I was like thinking the same thing. I was like, it's still a good season. It sucks I missed it, but then I was like, no, like that. I'm literally coping with them not making the playoffs, and that's fine. It's so cope can be in everybody copes with different things in every way. Like we all cope with things. It's just gotta at least acknowledge when it is copium and when it's actual trying to be realistic. And I feel like. And again, not saying that anybody thinks that this season that doesn't think the same as us is incorrect. Like we all have different opinions. It's just, to me, I don't think it seems like it's pussyfooting around the fucking topic and trying to baby Torey Lovullo when he's not a first-year manager anymore. This isn't a young manager like Stephen Vogt if he would miss the playoffs, whatever. They're running out of excuses and they're running out of ways to sometimes if a manager genuinely can't make it happen, like we've seen it in 2018, we've seen it in 2024. If this kind of thing happens again, like I said earlier, it's on the players, but some of it I feel like still would end up being a little bit on the manager.
Yeah, and I know, like I said, I know it can be hard on Torey at times. And I think the AZ
that's okay. Where it's okay to be critical, y'all. Like you don't have to be all sunshines and rainbows. It's okay to be critical.
Yeah, and the thing is with Torey, the main problem I've always had with him is that it's the same specific things he does over and over and over again. He'll pull Zach Gallen when he has 85 pitches, put in freaking Scott McGuff, and then Scott McGuff blows the game up, and you're like, I feel like Gallen could have gone a little bit longer. And like there's certain things like that, and then just insisting on putting pavement in every single day, like having his weird pet projects with Jordan, whatever his name was, who's not even in the league anymore, I don't think. Like it's just I can see why fans get frustrated. And I'm not on the fire Tory train. I do think of next year the same thing happens. I think he should be gone. And I know, Brandon, you're saying like, it's going to be in disarray.
When we were 7 games under, I would have been okay with that because the way the team was playing at that point, I get it. But where we are now, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, things can turn around. Like I know it happens. There's ebbs and flows to the season, but I do think if the same thing happens next year, if even Ken Kendrick opens up the wallet again, we got to look somewhere else. I think we got to get some fresh blood in here because again, we're talking about Torrey not being the first year manager. These players aren't babies anymore. They're not rookies. They're full grown major leaguers now, and we got to treat them as such. If they don't want to get rid of Daddy, then I don't care. Like bring in Longoria or something if they need a familiar face in there. And because 20-something years, no World Series championship, the Valley's starving for one. And maybe the Suns can do something this year. But I want to point out really quick, the Torey Lovullo in September. 2017, 5 over 500. 2018, 8 and 19, 11 under 500. 2019, 4 over 500. 2020, 3 under 500. 2021, 13 under 500. 2022, 6 under 500. Last year, 15 and 12. And this year, 500.
Really quick, just because you said 13 under 521 in one of our worst seasons. Oh my God, we had it not nearly as bad as White Sox fans. Sorry, I just wanted to put that in there.
Like, that is when you should have fired Torrey, after 2021. But the reason they didn't is because that roster was awful. That's not his fault.
You can't fully blame him for the roster, although there were a lot of things where I was like, man, I feel like they're giving away a lot of games, even in 2021.
Yeah.
It felt like there was a few times where I'm like, I don't know. I feel like they're tanking. Especially when September came around. They had a bad record, but it seemed like they could easily reach 70 wins a couple times, especially that late into the season.
This close to Jackson Holiday, y'all.
So
thank you, Josh Van Meter. So, one final thing that I want to say, and it's something that I said about Monty Williams. Some head coaches, some managers are good to take you in stages. Maybe Toy's one of those guys that takes you from being a so-so team to a playoff or near playoff team. There might, again, I'm not on the fire Torrey train, but I'm also, I don't think that he is not worth firing. I just don't think right now it would not. This team has the roster to win now. If they were to, I don't know, lose Gallen, lose Kelly, lose Walker, at that point, I'd be like, we don't need a manager like Torrey if we're going to go through a rebuild. So, I don't think we're losing. I think we're losing one of them. But again, I'm not saying Torrey shouldn't be fired. If Ken Kendrick and Mike Hazen think that he should be fired after blowing that 7-game wildcard lead over the Mets, I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen. I'm not going to be mad that they fired him. I don't want them to listen to the fans on this, because if this team listened to what the fans wanted to do, Corbin would have been sent down to Reno. Gino would have been DFA'd. Without a doubt. I was on the DFA Gino train myself, but I'm glad he turned it around. But people saying that they should either cut Corbin or send him down to Reno, I'm like, it's not happening.
Yes, if honestly, if we're going off of Ken's, his thought process, I really hope he's not thinking of firing Torey Lovullo, because we have a few comments here. He was actually the reason why they got Jordan Montgomery, and this is coming out now. Obviously, maybe we thought that it was just a late Hazen snag or whatever. No, Ken Kendrick took full blame in admitting he was the one that brought Jordan Montgomery and his very, very lovely 2024 season to the Valley.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
Signing Jordan Montgomery and Erod. I'll stick with Montgomery because Erod was hurt for a lot of the year, and we didn't get to see him in a full season. But Jordan Montgomery was $25 million, and he pitched to an ERA well over 6 and got demoted to the bullpen. How disappointed are you in that signing?
Let me say it the best way I can say it. If anyone wants to blame anyone for Jordan Montgomery being a Diamondback, you're talking to the guy that should be blamed. Because I brought it to their attention. I pushed for it. They agreed to it. It wasn't in our game plan. When he was signed right at the end of spring training. And looking back, in hindsight, a horrible decision, to have invested that money in a guy that performed as poorly as he did. It's our biggest mistake this season from a talent standpoint. And I'm the perpetrator of that.
Ken Kendrick, there's been times in the past where it seems like he runs his team like a fan. And it pisses me off that I'll give Jordan Montgomery this money, but he will nickel and dime Randy Johnson on like $5 million, and he won't let him get his 300th win as a Diamondback. Sorry, I digress. But Gabe, any thoughts that you had on Ken's comments there about him being the reason why Jordan Montgomery was a Diamondback?
I feel like he's airing dirty laundry out a little bit, but I also don't blame him. I mean, you spend $25 million on a guy who is, other than Bumgarner, the worst signing in the team's history. And maybe he's still feeling salty about the Bumgarner one as well. Like, basically the same person. And Jordan can opt in if he wants to and take him for another $25 million. And who knows what he's going to do next year. He might even be worse. He might be better. We don't know. But a lot of people are saying, oh, who wants to sign here if, Ken is making those comments? Don't suck. That's all I got to say. Like, don't suck as bad as Jordan Montgomery was, because Jordan Montgomery was bad. Like, he had maybe a couple of decent games, but everything else was just garbage. So, I mean, maybe you don't want your owner saying comments like this, but also at least he's honest and saying, like, taking the full blame for something like that.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely seems like maybe he's trying to be like, oh, Jordan, maybe you don't want to come back here because in my comments I said, save me $25 million.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe he's saying that to put it out there so that Jordan, because it's a player option, he's saying that so Jordan doesn't exercise that option, and they're not, because they don't need Monty. They don't. They only did that because of the uncertainty with Brandon Pfaadt and Ryan Nelson. Like, they don't need him. What we need is we need almost a brand new bullpen. Like, our middle relief is not good. Our back end is decent. It's that middle. It's bridging from the 5th to the 7th and the 8th is just like, when we don't have our top, like Martinez, Thompson, and Ginkel going, I know they don't have confidence, and us as a fan base do not have confidence. But I was very surprised by his comments because I always thought it was weird. I'm like, why are you guys signing Montgomery? Like, I'm like, that just doesn't feel like a smart move by Mike Hazen to spend that much money. Makes sense now.
Yes, and now that we know that, it wasn't a Hazen move, I think at least, the fan base we could at least not put that on the same, wavelength as, or the same level as Mad Bums. Because Mad Bum, that was on Hazen. He's taking the blame. But at least, Ken is out here for it. And Josh says, I'm all for accountability, but holy cow, he definitely won't want to come back now. Yeah,
that's the point of what he's trying to do.
Yeah, and it's Bubba, same person. Hey, at least Monty was willing to actually change stuff. Mad Bum did not. And then, I think Josh brings up a good point. We were on board. Yeah, maybe he is calling us out. Like I said earlier, I was torquing. Josh had the video of me literally shaking my ass back here when we signed Jordan Montgomery. Like, we definitely liked it at the time. We definitely, even Brandon mentioned earlier, on paper, it made the rotation, and coming off the World Series, what we saw Monty was in the playoffs, it was really exciting. But obviously with hindsight, with now, even like the what have you done for me and the recency bias, man, that was a terrible signing, but at least we know it's not fully on Mike Hazen, and it's not his issue. But as I was saying earlier, and kind of speaking of Mike Hazen, he also did sit down with some of the D-backs media, gave some of his thoughts on the season and all that, and just how things kind of turned out for the D-backs here in 2024.
We should have made the playoffs, and we didn't, and it's pretty disappointing, quite frankly. We played hard. We prepared. We played hard. We had a lot of really good moments. We had a lot of good individual moments. We had a lot of players take huge steps forward. Those are things that we're going to keep with us moving forward, and we'll turn the page on this. But pretty disappointed that take out yesterday. It is what it is. That we didn't determine our fate when we had the opportunity to do so prior to yesterday. We knew what the ground rules were. There's no more playing in to get in if you tie. We know that there's tie-breaking scenarios now instead, and those put you in a tough situation. And we lost the series to both of those teams and put ourselves in that spot. So, I think there were some controllable things that we could have done different to change the outcomes, and we're going to try to build on those things moving forward going into next year. The fact is, we have a good baseball team, and we won 89 games. That is a tough accomplishment in this game. If you were to ask me at the beginning of the season what my goal would have been from a win-loss standpoint, I would have said 90 games. I would have said you win 90 games, you've had a good year, and you're going to get into the playoffs. And we missed that by a game. And unfortunately, that cost us this year. Would have gotten us in by 5 last year, but it cost us this year.
I'm mad, and I'm just trying to get through that right now. I'm just trying to figure out how to process it the right way and then be better tomorrow. That's the space we all live in. And, Mike said it best. We should be in Milwaukee right now. We all know that, and we're not. And I'm bitter, and I got to figure out a way to work through that. And I will when it's the right time, and then we're going to charge forward. Every single year we're going to compete at a very high level, and we're going to be looking at something like we did last year. That is my mindset. It's every player's mindset. We're training them to think that way. They prepare that way, and they play that way. We just came up a little short this year.
Clearly, Mike Hazen is, overreacting. He doesn't, this was a successful season, right? Sorry, I'm just going off of what everyone told us about our thoughts before. Had to get that jab in there. I apologize. But I think, again, Hazen kind of was on the same page as us. And I think, if anything, said the exact same things as Gabe said. Like, it was disappointing. Yes, there was good moments. Yes, there was positive things. Players took step forwards. But they didn't make the playoffs. And I did kind of like a little bit of that. It seemed like Hazen was saying all of that directly to Torey Lovullo, but obviously not looking at him in the face. Because he was saying, like, there were some things that we definitely could have handled differently. And I think that's him being like,
this right here, Bubba this is probably one of the primary things, even though Hazen had a comment today saying he wanted Seawold back in the closer role. I'm like, ooh, Hazen, that is a bad choice.
Yeah, so that's kind of going back to similar of the, him just being too much of a player's guy. And like Bubba even said earlier about, the mindset with Monty Williams of, like, if you're too much of a player's guy and you don't want to actually, like, Torey will push and, punish his guys a little bit, but it seems like there are times where he's too lenient. But at least, kind of focusing on what Hazen was saying and, like, what he focused on, and even Torey's secondary comments, because this clip was from today. The one of him in the Tarasi jersey was from yesterday. So their minds got to kind of marinate a little bit. And I wanted to get your thoughts, Gabe, on what Hazen said and, kind of what he pointed out with how the season went.
I mean, he basically said everything I've said and have felt during this time about, with the expectations being set up, things could be changed, wishing things that, things could have gone differently. I mean, Bubba's bringing up Seawald. That shouldn't have happened. And here's the thing, like, in our group chat after like third or fourth time he went out, I was like, hey, Seawald is giving up a lot of hard contact. I'm like, I know they're going for outs, but everything is either, everything on the ground is 95 plus, everything in the air is 95 plus, and it's going straight to defenders. But at some point, it's going to come back to bite them. Like, there's no way he can keep this up. And I believe I tweeted that after like third or fourth game, like, damn, he's getting up a lot of hard contact. And of course, people come at and just said the same thing they said when I mentioned the home runs. It's like, oh, well, what does it matter how he does? I'm like, yeah, because these eventually, these things average out, and
It's
he
a
paid.
it's a sign that it will be a problem.
Yeah,
You
might not
guys
be a
don't want,
problem now. Might
but
not
it
be a
will
problem.
be.
Same with Tommy
And
Henry. Tommy Henry, when he came up last year, 2 years ago, he seemed like, with the spin rates and everything, his expected batting average against, his FIP, everything seemed to pinpoint to him not being as good as his numbers showed. Because I think after like 3 or 4 starts, he was still like under 2, and then immediately just like jumped back up. And I know Jesse Friedman from PHNX got a lot of hate from people. Brought it up, like, hey, like, these numbers unfortunately might not be real. And he got a lot of hate and pushback. And now Tommy Henry is what, in double A? I don't even think he's in triple A right now. Like, it's sometimes you can see patterns and numbers. And I know people like to hate on analytics and everything, but this is the eye test too. I noticed with my eyes that it seems like everything was making a really loud sound off the bat that Seawald was, giving up. And then all you just got to do is look at StatCast and 95, 100. And it's like, okay, so this might be a problem because he's not able to fix it. And at the time, his velocity was at 89 miles an hour. And I was like, you have a guy who's throwing 103? Like, we don't want to test him out in this role?
Yeah, I don't even know. Like you said it the best. But Brandon, thoughts on kind of what Hazen said, and how he put it very bluntly. He was not sugarcoating anything.
I'm just glad that he realized what the problem was. Like, he brought it up. We lost the tiebreaker to both of them. That was the reason. And like, he didn't like blatantly say like what things that went wrong, but we all know what it was. It was Torrey. I mean, one of them was Torrey relying on Seawald for too long because of how it worked last season. This season, it was weird. He was good for like his first 10 saves. He was dynamite. And then that collapse of his velocity dropping, all the hard hit contact, like it was not good. He's a free agent, so there's no reason to bring him back because he's not going to be the closer. It needs to be, at this point, it's Puck or J-Mart for me. I think it's going to be dependent on matchups for me. Like, if they're in the 8th and it's the 3 big bats and one's a lefty, I do Puck. So, and also the whole thing on Toy didn't want to announce a closer, but I'm like, you do that, guys know their roles.
Yeah, look what happened last year that once he announced Paul Sewald was a closer. Like, I know it wasn't hard to announce. Yeah, you trade for Paul Sewald who's a closer. He's going to be your closer. Well, guess what? You announce he's your closer, and everything fell into place. Well, we saw what happened in the end of this season when you kind of got to jostle guys. And when you have Justin Martinez and Ryan Thompson and Kevin Ginkel, who, by the way, pitched with a partially fractured shin from that comebacker in June against the Mets.
I thought because he yelled so loud and like he struggled like the first month after that. I'm like,
he turned it around, which is hey, props to Kevin Ginkel. Like,
you muted yourself again.
Sorry, I was like, dude, props to him because like, I tweak one of my back muscles. And I'm like, ow, mommy, ow, please help me. Oh, my back. Like, I couldn't imagine.
I sit in a chair for too long. My ass hurts.
Yeah, dude. And I'm not even in my 30s yet. Like, that's, props to him and, dealing with that. But yeah, it's definitely, I think the look on Hazen's face and even Torrey's face, because obviously that was, I believe, today. It stings, man. That's going to be, at least I hope, a thing that whatever guys return to this team, whether Jock, I know, made some comments about he would like to come back, but again, he's going to get a payday, so that's up to Ken if he wants to put that money up there. Seawalk, if he's going to get bought out by or overpaid or paid highly by another team. But either way, I hope that kind of look that they had is something that the team kind of keeps with them. Just goes into this offseason pissed off. Maybe one of the benefits to them not making the postseason is guys like Corbin, Gallen will get that rest that looked like might have hurt them, having a shorter whatever it is. So maybe they can actually, like Gabe said, they've secured and clinched time with friends and family in Cancun. They can go relax for a little bit, get their mind right, come back after October, do like what Nick Ahmed did. I couldn't even watch it. And still can't believe him and David Peralta are taking more at bats in 2024 in the postseason than the D-backs, but I digress.
Nick Ahmed is not taking an at bat.
Sorry. He's playing more innings than any Diamondback.
No, I don't think he plays at all. He's on the playoff roster. That's it. There's no way that man is, unless the Padres are up like 10-1 in the sixth. That's the only way David Peralta is different. Like, I feel like he might get a pinch at bat versus a righty, but there's no way Nick Ahmed sees the field in the playoffs.
Promise you, even if he doesn't see the field, he's going to accept that ring.
Oh, he will.
Enjoy it, Nick. But that was, some of the I guess the cherry on top, the bow on the end of the season, before we kind of get ready to prepare ourselves for some off-season content and, just accepting the season's over. But the last thing we had to do is we wanted to get some viewer questions from you guys, especially on the thoughts that you guys had, especially because the season just ended. You guys might have some opinions, ideas, and whatnot that we didn't think of. So the first one that we had here is from, let me see, there we go. Got it here. Considering all the injuries and unforeseen circumstances that presented themselves this season, looking back, what would you rate the season out of 10 with everything that happened? Did we underperform or play as expected? Want to know your guys' thoughts. So, Gabe, I'll pass it to you first. The question, how would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 for the season? I know we might have touched on it a little bit, but we haven't actually given it an actual numerical value.
I guess a 5. I know there was a lot of injuries, but every team has injuries. Like the Padres played without Tatis for like half the season. The Dodgers had
no pitching staff because of injuries.
Yeah, they had to throw out freaking Decoy out there for a game, so he can pitch because they just had no one else. And that's like every team. Every team has injuries. The only team that I think was seemingly a little bit more healthy was like the Phillies. They're probably it. But all these teams had injuries. All of them had big injuries as well. And you can't use that as an excuse every time because then, you start getting stupid conversations like when the Suns made the playoffs and went to the championship. Finals. When everyone's like, oh, well, if this happened, if that happened, I'm like, yeah, well, they're not available now, are they? It doesn't matter. Like, you play who you have, and the D-backs played who they have, and a lot of these guys, hurt or not, they underperformed. Like, I know, like I said, they turned it around, but there's a lot of games early in the season where if Corbin, Suarez, Gurriel, if these guys would have been playing, at the Mendoza line at that point, we probably would have won a lot more games, and we just didn't because, when your guy hitting fourth or fifth is grounding out and swinging at pitches at the other guy's batter's box, like, yeah, you're gonna have these, a lot of these games are just gonna slip away. Same with Corbin. I mean, he was batting 170 up until May or June. Like, we can't have that happen again next year. And I'm not saying they have to be, hitting 300 every single month of the season, but you can't have these terrible starts to the season and expect, to really be somewhere and be playing competitive baseball in October.
Yeah, it's, I think I would put it around the similar, maybe like a 6, because again, there were some positives and all that. But it's definitely, I think a 7. I think a 7 going out of C. I don't think this season could be listed as a C. Like, great point. Yes, you have injuries. Every team has injuries. The Dodgers, I believe, had more injuries than us, especially to their starting rotation. Like Glasnow, the guy they gave him $100-something million to, isn't even going to be pitching. Yamamoto missed most of the year. They had like 2-3 guys go down with like Tommy John, and they had plenty of guys to step up and get the job done. The D-backs just couldn't. They're players that they needed to step up, would it sometimes, and then, like Jake McCarthy had a lot of moments where he stepped up, and the last 30 days he was hitting like Alec Thomas, which is another point. Why not just play Alek Thomas? But Brandon, thoughts to you, or same question to you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this season on the way the D-backs went and all that?
I mean, before Gabe, when I saw this question, I was like 5 or 6. Like, it was okay. They won a lot of games. They played meaningful baseball in September. That doesn't mean it was a good season, though. Like, you didn't make the tournament. Like, that's the whole point of playing the entire season, is to make it to the World Series. So yeah, it's like probably like a 5.5. So like a 5-6, I would probably say. There's just, I know for me, I had high expectations after seeing all the moves that they made this offseason, that I'm like, this roster was better than last season. So why shouldn't we be back there? But some guys didn't play to their ability. Zach Allen, for me, is the prime example. Like, he just wasn't typical Zach Gallen for a majority of the season. Now, could it have been his hamstring injury that I think he was hurting from a lot more than he probably wanted to admit? So, yeah, it's probably about a 5 or 6.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we, kind of all be on the same page. We're curious to what you guys think. Let us know either in the Discord or in the YouTube comments, the live chat and all that. Give us your, same questions to you guys. This isn't just for us up here. We want to, get some interaction from you guys because every fan has some different ideas. But moving on into our second, viewer question that we had in the Discord was on improvements going into the 2025 season. So it was with our season ending, how it did. What do the D-backs need to do to improve but stay consistent next season? Me personally, I think it's definitely their B bullpen, which it was brought up on the Snake Pit. I don't know who exactly quoted it, but their B bullpen was definitely more of a C-. Get that, other arms so you don't have to only rely on Puck and J-Mart at the very end of the game. Have what the Padres are having, kind of the 4 or 5 arms where you can really rely on, and then 2-3 others where you maybe not. And then just, again, reassure your DH, because the DH was a big reason why they hit this year and a big reason why they kind of came up short in the postseason last year. But Gabe, I want to pass it on to you. What are the improvements that the D-backs need to make going on into 2025 to at least, again, get back to the postseason? I know it's continued success. They didn't make it, so there's not full success, but build on this season and be even better going into 25.
I guess the main thing I'm going to pinpoint specifically, I mean, there's quite a few things, like some of the coaching staff, the training staff, a more consistent offense, but I'll specifically target the bullpen just because that was something that we brought up, before the season started, that we wished Hazen would have done something about the bullpen. He basically just brought everybody back, and it was one of those things where I was like, yeah, I know that Thompson was good, but he also has like a 4 ERA, and Seawall is injured, and he's throwing 89. Like, I guess it was kind of victim of their own success, where Hazen felt comfortable with guys who outperformed their numbers in that second half, in that last month or two of the season and in the playoffs. And so I think for me, that's what it is. Address the bullpen, get really good guys, pay a premium if you have to. Same, not just paying like with money, but I mean, even with prospects, like we're running out of time. I know this team supposedly was built on sustained success, but Gallen and Kelly aren't going to, probably going to be here after next year. We have a lot of guys who are leaving the team soon, who are very, very valuable to the team. So I think that's definitely the main thing, is address the bullpen, because that entire first half of the season, like seeing certain guys like McGough and Castro and
Hughes,
and man, we can't have that happen again. And so, yeah, pay them a lot of money if you have to, because that's what wins games nowadays. And if the pitching is going to be a little shaky, at least we can have a lockdown bullpen.
Yeah, so look at like the Padres. It's not even just bullpen. It's a little mixture. You can't just rely on your offense. You got to have your offense and a really good bullpen and consistent starters. Like you said, Gallen and Kelly might not be back here after 25, so you got to capitalize on 25. I've said it before, and I said it like 3 years ago on Twitter, more as a meme, but 2025 World Series champion, Arizona Diamondbacks, it's gonna happen. let's make it happen. Let's see them actually address some of these issues. But same question to you, Brandon. What's the area that you want to see the D-backs improve in, whether it be like Gabe and I were saying, the bullpen, or if there's a different spot in the team that, maybe we're overlooking that you want them to kind of hone in on and focus on?
I mean, I keep in mind, Dre is still on Tommy John, and he might be slated to be ready for the start of next season. They need to make a decision, though, on what is he. Is he a starter? Or is he a bullpen arm? I personally think just put him in the bullpen. Let him go 110% for like 1 or 2 innings, because he has some really good stuff. And he's a younger guy. That's my fear with the bullpen right now, is we have a lot of older guys. Like Ginkel's getting up there, Thompson. I mean, we do have J-Mart, who's young. We have control on puck. We could potentially have Dre. The free agency pool, though, for relievers there's some good ones out there. So they got to be aggressive at it, and please have a backup plan for first base. Like, have something in mind, whether it's a platoon, because I don't think our first baseman, if it's not Walker, is on this roster. It is not Josh Bell and Pavin Smith, in my opinion. Now, an idea that maybe they do, put Gino on the other side and let Jordan Lawler play third base, because Jordan Lawler's not playing shortstop. Perdomo has that locked up. There's no reason to put Perdomo to third base and have him learn that position. So that idea, because the only reason we didn't see Jordan Lawler this year is because he got hurt and he was out for half the year. So I think Jordan is probably our starting third baseman. Unless they do re-sign Walker, then no reason to rush him up and keep Gino at third, because I think Gino has an option on his contract as well. I believe it was a 1 year with a team option, I think, for the second year. So be aggressive on addressing that bullpen and have a plan if you can't re-sign Walker.
Yeah, so I'm glad we're all kind of on the same point with the bullpen. I think you bring up a good point with Dre. I know guys that we don't see throughout the year, we might forget about him a little bit. Don't know if he's going to be ready for opening day, because I think his Tommy John was pushed back a little bit. They tried to avoid it. So hopefully he's ready to go there, but he would be a nice addition. I know we got Landon Sims we can call up. And then even with the, like Josh says, Andrew Saul Gambler back, he was a solid lefty in 2023. If we could, I know he wasn't the greatest at times, but if he can, lock
in the postseason, he wasn't great.
Yeah, the postseason wasn't great, but he was still pretty solid, at least to end of the year in 2023. But yeah, and
I'm okay with that, Bubba. I'm absolutely okay with that.
Jameson to puck to J-Mart would be a nice 7th inning, especially if you still have Ginkel. Like, just give me a nice solid 5 guys. But I do think they definitely need to be a little bit worried about the Walker situation, at least first base, because Ivan Melendez has struggled a little bit. He hasn't shown the signs where he's ready to come up yet. Gino Groover, I don't think they're going to transition him over to first base. Like, there's not really a solid option. Bell's not coming back, so I would say maybe, like Brandon, good point. If Gino can over there, I know it's going to be a little bit of a difference in defensive ability. I don't think he's the same defender as Seawalk. We don't know, but
I don't know that many guys are.
I don't think there really are, but I think that is at least a good, maybe not like backup plan as like a way to turn, but I think that is a good option they could go to if they, can't bring Seawalk back.
I mean, you can even put Lawler there. I mean, he is a shortstop. Like, they can play everywhere. He's 6'1", so I think he's technically even taller than Walker is. So, I mean, it seems to work for the Padres, putting a shortstop in every position.
Yeah,
you are right on that one. They literally, I think 8 of their 9 guys had played shortstop at some point in their professional career. Gabe, I do want to let you know, Tanner Scott is a free agent.
Ooh, okay.
So
You got to pay the troll toll.
Got to pay the troll toll. But yeah, say the bullpen and all that. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how they just address some of these moves. And I guess the main man. This will kind of lead into our third question and final viewer question that we had here. The main man that's going to be, I guess orchestrating that and the financial side was the one that, orchestrated the Montgomery deal, and that is going to be Ken Kendrick. The question that we had here about it was, with the way the season went and the concerns looming over the ballpark, do we think Ken Kendrick will push all of his chips in like he did this year? Meaning, I think this was one of the best off seasons I remember with J-Rock, Erod, Monty. Looking back on it again at the time when we signed him, it was looking good. But do you guys think that Ken will kind of double down again and push his chips and do what he can to make sure this team adds to what they need to add? Or do you think he's going to be a little bit reluctant, kind of what we've seen in the past, and maybe not try to be as splashy? Gabe, I want to start with you. Floor is yours.
I mean, I guess it would just depend on what Montgomery decides to do, because as far as I'm aware, the Bumgarner contract expires, so that's $17.5 million that they're going to free up. And as far as I know, there's no real guys entering arbitration that you need to worry about. I mean, I think Gallen, but not to the point where we're going to be paying, $25-30 million to a guy in arbitration, but that's about $17 million that they're getting freed up. And if Montgomery opts out of his contract, that'd be another $25 million. So that would put up at $42 million coming off the books for next year. So I don't see why not. But obviously, we know Ken's track record. So maybe he will, maybe he won't invest. I mean, even 2017, they had a chance to pay a certain guy, a lot of money so they can get back into the playoffs. He refused to do so. And instead we got, 2 games out of
Steven Souza Jr.
Steven Souza Jr. So,
oh God, that name just triggered me.
If we're gonna follow the trends that we've seen, making the playoffs and then not investing, I don't know how to feel, but I think Ken has seen also that when you invest money in this team and they make it to the playoffs, you make a whole lot of more money. So I would assume, he would at least play-ish with those $40 million that, he's going to have come off the book. So I would expect him to, but, still something to see.
Yeah, I think you make a great point with the $40 million. That is going to be a fun for them to play with. So, Brandon, I want to, obviously pass it on to you, let you have the floor. Kind of, do you think this is going to be something that Ken's going to be willing to, double down, push his chips in, or is it going to be a little more reluctant?
So we played that clip from Ken Kendrick from the Brenton Gambo show on Arizona Sports. There was another clip that came out that he said that Kendrick said he will be spending money again. How much? It wasn't displayed inside the clip, so I'm not sure. I do want to say that J-Mart, Alec, Jake, Ryan, Gabby, and Fott are all pre-arbitration, so we don't have to worry about that right now. And then, obviously, Walker's a free agent, Josh Bell, and Kevin Newman. Gino is a team option. I don't see any reason why they do not exercise that option. Now, if you would have asked us in June, no. Now, yeah. What scares me is McGuff is on the payroll for next year. So that's a little scary for me. But I think they will spend money. Yes, we didn't make the playoffs, but outside of Montgomery, every move they made last season worked out. Erod is still there wasn't enough time. Had he pitched as much as Montgomery, I feel like it would have been better. We talked at length how good that platoon of Randall Grichuk and Jock Peterson went. And then the whole thing with Gino, it worked out. I don't think they're going to spend the way that they did, but I think they will spend some. I think their number one priority, though, should be Walker. You got to get that figured out first, then go address the bullpen.
Yeah, Walker is going to be a highly touted free agent. I know the Yankees, they're going to be probably letting Anthony Rizzo go. I've heard a lot of Yankees fans that are like, I want Walker, I need Walker. It's really hard to fill a position. I know it's been one of those where we've talked about it, and even there's been some things on D-backs Twitter. And Goldie had his issue. There are times where maybe it seems like they might not be as clutch with runners in scoring position, but sometimes I don't care. It's what he does provide when they do come clutch, what they do provide in the field. It's really hard to find a replacement, and you don't know. Like he's still a leader in this clubhouse. He's still a voice that probably a lot of the young guys, the D-backs do end up calling up, would look up to. And I think he, full-heartedly agree with you, Brandon. You got to keep him. You have to keep Christian Walker. Like it obviously depend on the money. If the Yankees are genuinely going to overpay, and they want to give him like $27 million, and it's like, okay, buddy, okay, all right, buddy, glad you're getting paid, Christian, you deserve it, but the D-backs can't, fucking give up that kind of money. But I guess moving on to the final thing, obviously, again, thank you very much, each one of you guys.
I'm looking at this ranking for first baseman salary from this year. Chris Bryant's at 28. Bryce Harper's at 27.5. Freddie's at 27. Goldie's at 26.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Walker would want 27. I wouldn't be surprised if he wants market value. If that's the case, we might have to deal with it. But, I mean, again, the guy deserves it. He's been stuck behind so many people for his entire career. He's finally reached free agency. He deserves to get the money he deserves. So, if that happens, all love to Christian Walker still. But, wanted to wrap up. And, again, thank you to very much to everybody in the Discord for the questions and for the questions and stuff in the live chat. We wanted to wrap up here. I know it's, again, a disappointing end to the season. It's not how we wanted to. We wanted to be here we wanted tonight's stream to be us recapping the D-backs versus Brewers game, going over what would hopefully be the D-backs doing the exact same thing that the Mets did. But unfortunately, things did not play out that way. But it doesn't mean that we still can't, at least, I'll start. Want to give just huge thank you to every one of you guys. Been just under a year of doing this, and the community we've grown and built, and just everything. I truly appreciate it. This has been way more than or at least I even expected going into this. So I know it wasn't the end of the season. I know it's a little bit of a sad, disappointing finish to it, but we're not going anywhere. Just because the season's over doesn't mean that we are over. We're going to still be here, hopefully at least twice a week, off-season content, all that, getting prepared, keeping you guys up to date on any news, anything like that D-backs related throughout the offseason. So again, seriously, bottom of my heart, appreciate each and every one of you guys for even taking a minute to, if you just like it and you don't even listen to it, that's fine. If you listen to it and don't even like it, that's fine. Like any interaction you guys give with us, you're here. We truly appreciate it. So I want to, pass it on to Gabe to, let him kind of do the same thing, give his flowers to each and one of you guys.
Yeah. I mean, this is beyond anything I think any of us really expected to do. Like the fact that we just started with, one or two subscribers that were like our family members to now having, a couple hundred, same with Twitter, sponsorships and all that. Like just wouldn't be possible without our listeners. And I know people say stuff like that, but we do mean it. Like we wouldn't keep doing this if people, I mean, maybe we would just so we can, chit chat about the D-backs, but just the fact that we have a lot of people in the comments now and, you guys seem to enjoy it, and just keep an eye out. We're going to be putting a lot more content out there. We're going to be doing more videos, and we're probably going to be doing some more like games and Mount Rushmores. Like there's a lot that we're going to be doing in the off season to, keep you guys occupied a little bit. And we hope you join us for that too.
Yeah, say Gabe put it best. That was one of the things that when we even started this podcast in the offseason, we were like, ooh, we got to do D-backs Mount Rushmore. But again, last offseason, very hectic. They were very busy, and it kept us from needing to do that. But we will definitely be getting that to this offseason. Brandon, floor is yours. I know we've kind of talked about it in the group chat, just how the community and everything we built together. But I want to, let you have the mic and, spill your heart out to the lovely people of D-backs Dispatch Nation.
Yeah, I mean, Brett stated it. Gabe has stated it. We really appreciate all the support that you guys give, whether it's likes on our tweets, retweets, replies. Just the engagement alone lets us know that you guys are enjoying that sort of content on there. Everyone that joins us on the live streams here, just to interact, it really does make a difference. It allows us to engage with you. And just want to say thank you to everyone that has joined us on Discord. It does make days like yesterday a little bit easier because you're not alone in the suffering. Like everyone feels the exact same way, whether it's being sad or depressed or even happy when something good happens. This is the life of a sports fan. Like, it has the ups and downs. It really is. What have you done for me lately? Yes, I know right now this season sucked. It really did. Going out like this where you put your foot in your mouth. It's literally what this team did. Had they done what they were supposed to, we wouldn't have to worry about that double header. It was not a double header. It was a 1.05 game. Like, it was. So just make sure to stay tuned to the channel here. Make sure you do like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. That way, whenever either we upload a new video or we go live, you get notified. You don't want to miss that. If you're in the Discord, just make sure that you keep up to date on that. Just because it's the off season does not mean that place is going to be quiet. I can guarantee you that there'll be something because we do have other sports fans in there. We have people that like basketball. We have people that like football. So that place it may not be as alive in the D-backs channels for a bit, just because of playoffs right now. So we know there's not going to be a lot of transactional news. Hopefully they can work out this Walker thing like really early in the offseason. That way we don't have to have the stress of it. Because I know for me, that's going to be like my biggest thing I'm scared of. Any news I see about Walker is going to frighten me. Because if he goes to the Yankees, Shrimpy, I appreciate you. You're a good supporter, but I'm not going to like you for a bit if that happens.
He'll accept him with open arms at least. He's a good. He likes the D-backs at least.
Yes, yeah. Shrimpy is a good dude, other than his choice of a baseball team.
But yeah, so like Brandon said, the likes, all that interaction, engagement, it really does, help, especially on the memes. Gabe wouldn't be constantly cooking up all these memes if you guys weren't out there, enjoying them. So, especially the history lessons. My man Gabe is teaching us, because I definitely learned something the other day about, Phoenix that I did not know. Yeah. But again, if you guys haven't already checked it out, we do have a lot of, articles, not just from us in the recaps, but there are just a ton of D-backs related articles on the Snake Pit. azsnakepit.com under SB Nation. That's another big thing that happened this year that I couldn't have even imagined. So seriously, again, shout out to them. Go out there, create an account, just get interactive, because there's a lot of good people on there as well. And then again, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, and then stick around in the Discord, because again, we're not going anywhere. We are going to be here throughout the off season. We're gonna have, at least instead of it going to be our emotions and reacting to the series, there's going to be some more fun, lighthearted. We're going to have some guests on too. So it's definitely going to be a fun off season. I know it sucks right now, but as a lot of things in life, it will get better. As Tori said, the sun will shine tomorrow. And we, again, do appreciate each and every one of you guys for checking us out here at D-backs Dispatch.
It's the D-backs Dispatch. Let's go. Yeah, bring Red Game, Josh on the floor. West Coast vibes, catch us on the air. Home running dogs, diamond gems we share. Brandon was a stats, he's the man with a plan. Red brace it down, tells it like it is, man. Gabs on fire, brings the heat every time. Josh on the mix, keep the beat so prime. I got the insight, 7 weeks ahead. Tune in, D-backs Dispatch, this is it. Now we rollin'. D-backs Dispatch, yeah. Talk to Brandon Gabe, this is Big Catch. Josh on the mix, he make the beats. West Coast vibe, got the G fucking the bad. Oh man. The home match, the home match, home match. D-Backs dispatch, we're here to stay. Catch us every week, we bring the play-by tour. We got the home match, the home match, the home match, home match. D-Backs dispatch, we're here to stay. Catch us every week, we bring the play-by tour.